Hey, so if you can't already tell by the title of the video, this is a very different type of video that I'm making. This one is about the very infamous and famous switch known as the Holy Pandas. Now I have a bunch of notes on here that I have to read, so and a little bit too far for me, so let me just get my glasses on.
Holy shit, this is game changing.
So if you don't know what the Holy Panda switches are, they were known as a Franken switch, which is when two switches come together, usually the housing and the stem come together to create a new switch. For Holy Panda's case, there was the Invir Panda housing that was made. Someone thought of the brilliant idea of combining it with a Halo True stem from Drop. I think it was from Drop. I might be wrong. They were from a Halo True stem. They combined those two things together and they created the Holy Panda Tactile switch. It became such a popular switch that everyone was just making them. They were just buying the fucking housings. They were buying Halo True stems all over the place. The demand was like fucking skyrocketing. The fucking switches on Mech Market, they were like $6 each switch. $6 each switch. You could buy a Switch for 30 cents from fucking... So as the demand rose and popularity for the Switch grew, Drop being Drop, they decided, hey, why not make Holy Pandas a thing? Now let's move on to current day. The 2020 Holy Panda drop, it was around February, I believe, or maybe it was like fucking June or something. I bought mine in July. I was the July batch, but it was a mess. But COVID and the delay of shipments and poorly packaged switches, it was just everything. It was everything. As people started receiving their switches, a whole other controversy started to unravel where people were realizing that these tactile switches were not what they were advertised as. With the Holy Panda switches, they were initially advertised as being a full palm housing, with full palm housing, 60 gram springs, and a palm stem. They were not made of full palm housing, and that they were not unlubed from the factory. Now with the unlubed, it's not that big of a deal because you could go in, clean them up, and then do your own lubing. It's just that they advertised it to being unlubed that made people mad about this whole situation. Back to the housing. One of the users or one of the purchasers had discovered that these switches were actually made of polycarb as a top housing and a nylon bottom for the switch housing. The person who figured this out was a user by the name of Hugo Keys. I'll put a link below of the footage, and the whole video just basically shows how one material burns slower than the other, palm being the material that would burn faster than nylon and polycarbonate. They put this up, they asked questions about and then there was a whole fucking shit going down, and people were like, hey Drop, what the it took Drop about a week to clear up some things. They came out with information saying that there was misinformation being told to them by their manufacturer, saying that the manufacturer said that the housing was made of palm, but in actuality it was the same housing that they had from the previous batches and the previous jobs from previous years. There was also another situation where the chief product officer took a jab at the video that was uploaded by Hugo Keys to a user who was kind of disappointed in the fact that they were marketed to be full palm housing, and they wanted to return it, but then the whole returning process for them was basically the same as purchasing the switches all over again. And the chief product officer replied with him making a joke about the Hugo Keys video, saying, you know, if you send us proof that you burned your switches, then we'll give you your refund. And like yeah, the community didn't like that. Well, past the controversy, let's get into the review of these switches. So as a person who Never tried Holy Panda before. This is like my first time trying a Holy Panda Switch. You just look for the typical things, you know, stem wobble, housing wobble, and all that. Tactile bump and stuff like that. Stem was pretty wobbly in the housing. I mean, like, you can't really do much about that because through shipment sometimes, or like manufacture producing these things, they could shrink. Stuff like that can happen, you know. So it's not that big of a deal. Housing wobble for me is not that much of a big of a deal. Out of the box, the housings were fairly loose as well. I mean, like, yeah, it happens. Like, you can't really expect much. I mean, yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. Filming these, if you wanted to film these switches, it'll obviously give a lot more sturdiness to the switch. But I don't know if it's worth the extra labor. It took me about 3 extra hours just because I'm shit at doing this kind of stuff. But I don't have a loop station, so like doing this stuff manually one by one, like, it takes hours, man. When I started typing on these things, they were really nice. They had a very nice rounded tactile bump. I would say they were a round tactile bump. They kind of feel like I might get a lot of shit for this compared to the Halo Clears that drop cells. These are definitely more tactile than those, and they're definitely less tactile than a Zelios V2. The stock sound profile for the stock, it has a very nice, it has a deeper pitch than a Zelio switch. Sounds very similar to a Halo Clear switch. I tend to bottom out when I'm typing, so pressing down on these switches, it doesn't feel as tiring as like a Halo Clear, because I think the bottoming out for a Halo Clear is about 80 grams, and bottoming out for the Holy Pandas is about 76. It was less than a Halo Clear. That's all I remember. It's also less tiring than a Zelio switch, just because the Zelios is extreme tactility. Lubed and filmed these switches, like, compared to the stock, they feel way nicer. The scratchiness that you feel in the stock switches, it's completely gone. The wobble in the housing when you film them, it's gone. Lubing also improved the sound profile, in my opinion. It's all preference. It definitely improved the sound profile for me. Previously with the stocks, they sounded a lot more hollow. But once you put in the lube kind of takes up more space and creates a more tight feeling switch. While I was going through lubing the switches, I came across some of the stems that were missing a leg. I think there were like two of the switches that I think it was like 2 to 4. 2 to 4 of those switches came with a broken leg or missing leg on the stem. I'm not sure if this is like a factory error or if it creates no big deal, but when I typed on them, there was no tactile difference. They all felt the same, just because, I mean, like, the other side has the leg on it, so like it's perfectly fine. I don't think there's no like issue going on with the there's no issue with the tactility or response or actuation or stuff like that. But if you like really focus on the ones with the missing leg, it does feel a little, just a little just a little bit more linear, but it's like you won't notice it when you're typing. Like, if I'm gonna be nitpicky about it, just a little bit linear, just a little bit. It might be a placebo. I don't know. So overall conclusion, I really like these switches. I mean, they're holy pandas, you know what I'm saying? Even with all the controversy around the switches and how Drop went around with this whole shitstorm, you know. Switches were my entrance into like the holy panda scenes. I definitely like the tactility of both the stock and lubed. If I were to prefer one or the other, I would definitely choose the lubed. But if I was just fucking absolutely lazy and didn't want to lube and film any of these, the stock feel of these switches are perfectly fine. Definitely like the sound profile of both. Prefer the lube just because it sounds more compact. Now the real question is, are these switches worth getting? Yes and no. Reasons why behind me saying yes to these switches is they're nice switches. Like, they're nice switches. Like, what else could you say? Now the reason behind me saying no though is the price. Drop decided after the final batch, which was in September, that they were going to increase the prices from like $70 for 70 switches, I believe. But now they increased it to $85 US to 70 switches. For me, the whole craze behind buying the switches in the first place was because of the prices they were initially sold for. Because I remember seeing these drop switches going for like $5, seeing reviews of people saying that these things were going on aftermarket for like $6.50, and at the time I had no idea how to do a Franken switch because I didn't want to open switches, lube them or anything. I just wanted to fucking buy these switches just because they were called holy pandas, you know. Now that these switches are going back over $1 per switch, it just seems like for what you're getting, I don't think it's worth it because there's so many other tactile switches that you could, you know, try, like, you know, use that are cheaper than the drop holy pandas, you know. I'm pretty sure that Franken switching holy pandas are even cheaper than buying it from drop. And they also have Halo Trues, the Halo Stamp, the Halo Clears. They're going for like $45 each for 70 switches. Like, what is the price increase for? Second thing is, there are so many alternate options to the holy pandas. If you're not gonna buy these switches, there's nothing wrong with that, you know. But there are definitely several other options, and several other cheaper options, and more enthusiast-like, as in like you can make them yourself, you know, where you can get the same experience of typing. A website that I usually like watch on a daily basis to see if there's certain tactiles, like certain switches that are being dropped, is meggroupbuys.com. It's a great site where you can just see the latest drops for keyboards, keycaps, key switches, all that. Every once in a while you'll see a group buy for Franken switch housings, or like certain tactiles that are trying to represent or trying to mimic that tactile feel of the holy panda. Sometimes even say that they're better, you know. They might be better, I don't know. And they're definitely gonna be for a cheaper price. I mean, why else would they make these switches if they're not gonna make them cheaper than the actual switch? There's also Glorious PC Gaming. Glorious recently announced that they're going to be making their take on the holy panda switches. They said that they found like the original Inferior housing molds or some shit like that, and I don't know how much you could believe that, but they say they did it, so they say they found it and they're producing these switches, so that's something that you can look forward to. You can also check it out right now. I'm pretty sure they're taking pre-orders for batch 2, I believe. They're gonna keep running those things, so I think it's $32 for 36 switches, so cheaper than the original drop holy pandas. There are several reviews on these tactile switches. They're bunched by like all the keyboard YouTubers, Bad Seed, Brandon Tyler, Taya Types, all them, you know. I'll put those videos in the description, I guess. So in the end, the holy pandas are a very nice tactile switch with a rounded tactile bump with a nice sound profile, both stock and lubed. I think these are very nice tactile switches. For the price, not so much. But it's all about preference. So you might like it for the price, you might not like it for the price. It's all about preference. And I would say that these are a-okay for me. I mean, they're on one of my driving keyboards, so what could you do, you know? So thank you for watching this review. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you like this kind of reviewing kind of stuff, you know, I'm just doing whatever the fuck I want now. I don't even know what this fucking channel is anymore. But if you like this kind of stuff and you're into the whole keyboard scene and you want more of it, you know, put a comment below saying something like that. Give a like. If you want to see my other content, please go check that out. And if you like that content, please subscribe. If there's an audience for it, then I'll keep doing it. So yeah, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye. know if this is bullshit or not, but there's no fucking way that this fucking letter E I've been looking for about fucking 30 minutes was right fucking here. There's no way. There's no way it was right here. It did not. I looked through this fucking thing like 30 times. There was no fucking letter E right there. That is